Alright, welcome back to part 2. We're going to start with the face. I think I might have put my eyes up a little high. I gotta try to squeeze in eyebrows. We're just going to get one thing of the black. You can do yours however you want, but if you don't have a clue, then you can just follow me. It's going to be hard to do on camera, but tie a knot or a double knot, all depending on what you're using. So this knot's not going to be pulled into the doll, it's going to be pushed into the doll. So that's my eyebrows. I don't really look that angry, but most of it's going to be hidden by the hood. I don't look that pointy or angry. Hopefully yours turned out way better than mine did. Anyway, I can fix mine later. I don't need to fix it now. Anyway, tie a knot. Or a double if you want to do that. Cut a little bit off, leave a nubby. So you're going to poke this down into here, into the stuffing. And then you're going to cut that off, or you leave a little nubby. And you're going to poke that down. So that should get lodged into the stuffing if anyone tries to pull your eyebrows out. I'll have to just cut mine off and fix them later. So for the nose, pretty easy peasy. I just grabbed some white yarn and I went back and forth, and I kind of did like a triangle shape, sort of. You can do your nose however you want. The reason we're doing it white is because it is a skull, and really don't think skulls have noses. They kind of just have nose holes. So I wanted it to be there aesthetically, but I didn't want it to be there, if that makes sense. So this is why we use the same color yarn as our body colors. If you've done any other dolls with me, you'll notice I've done that on other dolls that shouldn't technically have noses, but you kind of need something there to fill in the gap. So once you're satisfied with your nose, you can just go down and come out wherever. My nose seems to be extra long. It's because I put my eyes up too high, so I'm just trying to balance everything out now. Just so it doesn't look completely stupid. So I'm going to make a knot there and do the exact same thing. I'm going to cut off, so it'll leave a little nubby, and I'm going to poke it down. So we have a nose, but we don't have a nose. And I pulled, so it kind of formed a little better of a bump. So, sorry, camera's really close. The mouth, exact same thing. You want to tie a knot or a double knot. So you're going to go in wherever you go in. And you're going to pop out somewhere. And you're going to come across evenly. So go do something like that, because we're going to start our lines right away. So wherever you want your first line to be. And then you're going to go, so because I came out there, my first line's going to be here. And when I go down, I'm going to scooch across over here to where my second line's going to start from my mouth. And I'm going to do the same thing all the way across. So you can make them as far apart as you want or as close together as you want. So you can make some big, some small. Here's the skull. Just try to match how much space you got on this side. So once you're done, you can pop out wherever you want. Make a knot. Get off your excess. Poke it down. There we go. Got a little bit of a nose here. I don't know if I like that, but there we go. I think my other face came out better, but I'll fix those eyebrows later. Let's move on. So the biggest part of this project is obviously the hood. Now the hood, I used a 5mm. We are building from the hood down. So you're going to need a stitch marker. Your first round is going to be 2 single crochets in each stitch. So if you're using a stitch marker, after your first one, you're going to have to put that in, and then you can do your second one. Your next round is going to be 1 single crochet and an increase. One single crochet, 2 single crochets. Next round is going to be 2 single crochet in an increase, so this will bring you to 24 stitches. And then your next round after that is going to be 1 single crochet in each of those 24 stitches. So that's 2 single crochets and then your increase, so 1, 1, 2, 1, 1, 2. Your next round is going to be 3 single crochets and an increase. This will bring you up to 30 stitches. It's starting to roll, so you can kind of turn it. That's number 1 in the stitch marker, as always. That's 3 single crochets and then 2 in this space for the increase. So your next round is going to be 4 single crochets and an increase. That's 4 single crochets and then your increase. So this will bring you up to 36 stitches. So your next round is 5 single crochets and an increase. And that'll take you up to 42 stitches, and then you can put 1 single crochet in each of those 42 stitches. So that's number 1. Five single crochets and then your increase. And repeat. So your next round is going to be 6 single crochets and an increase, and that takes you up to 48 stitches. That's number 1. Six single crochets and an increase of 2 single crochets in the same space, and repeat. So your next round is going to be 7 single crochets and an increase. So this is where, as far as we're going to go as far as increases, and that'll bring you up to 54 stitches. And then we're going to do 1 single crochet in each of those 54 stitches. That's number 1. That's 7, and 2 in the same space for your increase. So for the next 15 rows, I want you to do 44 single crochets, chain 1, and turn. And that's going to create the bonnet part. So you should have stitches that are unworked, and that's what we want to make the bonnet. So you're going to chain 1 and you're going to turn, and you're going to do the same thing till you come back around here. You'll be able to take this out. You're going to chain 1 and you're going to turn. Alright, I'm back after my 15 rows, and this is what you should have. So this is how it sits. So this is the bonnet part. So I need to chain 1 and along down the side here and across and back up the other side. So there's no stitches except for here where you skipped. We're going to have to make stitches. So wherever you can get your hook into, we're going to make stitches. And then all along here you have stitches. And then we're back to making stitches. We're going to chain 1 and we're going to turn all along the bottom. So this is how your bonnet's going to sit. This is now a bonnet slash cloak. Where we are, we're going to come back around the bottom of the bonnet. We're going to be making our holes for our ties. So you want to chain 1 and turn. You're going to do 1 single crochet in this very first stitch. You're going to chain 2, you're going to skip 1, and you're going to put a single crochet into that stitch. So we're just making holes for our ties. So chain 2, skip 1, single crochet, chain 2, skip 1, single crochet. So we're going to do this all the way back around. So I'm at the very last stitch. I'm going to go in, I'm going to make my single crochet, but I'm going to chain 4, and then I'm going to attach with a slip stitch to the other side, and I'm going to chain 2. So that's our bonnet, and now we have the thing that goes right across underneath the chin. That's what we just made there. So now we've got all these big spaces we've just made with our chain, which is what we're going to use to put our ties through, but we're also going to use them to work into. We're making stitches again. So you've chained 2. You're going to put a double crochet into this big space. Then you're going to put a double crochet in the middle of those big spaces. And then another one in a big space. So that's your... Oh gosh. My yarn was all hooked around the other guy's sickle. And then again, one into that big, in between the big spaces, and then one in the big space. So once you come back around, you're going to come to your chain 4, and you're going to put 1 double crochet into those each of those 4 chains. This is your chain 2 from before, so you're just going to slip stitch to the top of that chain, and you're going to chain 2. So I've come back around, I've chained 2. We have to make our armhole for the one arm that we're going to have. So put your 1 double crochet in here. Put another double crochet in the next stitch and then chain 4. Skip 3 stitches and double crochet into the 4th stitch. So that's your armhole. And now you can continue with your 1 double crochet increase. So count that as your 1 double crochet. This one gets 2 double crochets. 1 double crochet, 2 double crochets. So I've come back around and I'm going to slip stitch to the top of that first chain. I'm going to chain 2. So this is our armhole right there. We're going to do 2 double crochet increase, but first we're going to put a double crochet into that chain 2 space. We're going to put another double crochet here. We're going to put 3 double crochets into this big space that we made on the last round, because we skipped 3 spaces, so we're putting 3 double crochets in that space. So now you can do your 2 double crochet increase. Let's do double crochets and then 2 double crochets in the same space. So I've come back around, I'm going to slip stitch into the top of that first chain. I'm going to chain 2. I'm going to put a double crochet into that chain 2 space, and for the next 5 rows I'm going to put 1 double crochet in each stitch around for the next 5 rows. So that's what you should have with your armhole here so far. I'll meet you back when your 5 rows is done. Alright, so this is what we got so far. There's my guy. So, I know he's got an exaggerated head. He's supposed to have an exaggerated head. So, my cloak seems to fit okay. We're right at the very bottom. So you can just leave the bottom like this, or I put a different sort of a bottom on it just to kind of keep it's hard to explain what I'm talking about. So I wanted it to hang properly. So I put a bottom like this on. Now from the front it just looks like a regular stitch, but it's like more of a rim on the bottom. So how I did that, so I've slip stitched and I've chained 2. I know it's really hard to see. Slip stitched and I've chained 2. So let me get a needle. These are posts. That's a post. That's a post. That's what they're called, posts. That's your double crochet. And what I want to do is on every single post around, I want you to do a front post single crochet, which means, you know, you don't have to go down around the post like this. You can if you want, you don't have to. These holes where your stitches are, so hard to see. These holes where your stitches are, that's what you're going to go into. So you're going to go into this one and around. So you're picking up the top part of the post, and then you're just going to do a single crochet. You're going to go into that hole and around, picking that up, and do a single crochet. You're going to do that all the way around. So you've got right here, and then you've got these big spaces. I want you to go into these 2 small spaces and do a single crochet. It's called a front post because that's what you're doing, is you're going around the front post. And it's going to put a rim all around the bottom of your jacket, cloak. So that's what I want you to do all the way around. And then you can fasten off. That'll be the end of our cloak. So once you come back around, you're just going to slip stitch into that space. You can do it right into the space. Don't try to do it into a stitch. You can fasten off. You just need enough to weave in. You don't need to sew or anything. There. Your cloak is done. So now we just need to chain a... Sorry, that's my dog. So now we just need to chain a tie to go around it. So these big spaces here that we did before, we did use some of the space, but that's what you're gonna do. So I chained 90 for my last one. You can decide how much you want for yours. Alright, I got my tie done. I'm going to take one end and these big spaces, like I said, that we used last time, we're going to use again. I mean, that's what we built them for. So you're going to go in and out, in and out, in and out, all the way around. So leave some of your thing on the other side. So all you got to do is make your ties even. It's fairly even. And then I'm just going to cut off a little bit. I'm still kind of leaving little nubbies, if you can see that. So there we have our cloak. So the reason we didn't make our arms, our arm or anything before the cloak is because we're putting our arm where the hole is, but I didn't want to put the arm on and then get the hole in the wrong spot. So yeah, you can't even hardly see my eyebrows. You can hardly see my eyes, but I can adjust, pull the hood back a little bit. And so hopefully yours looks okay. I just gave this a little tie. You don't need to. You can do whatever you want with it, actually. It's your cloak. You can even put buttons down here to make it look like it's a cloak. So, now that our cloak is done, that was the biggest part. Then, now, let's do our one arm next. Alrighty, let's get on with this arm. We're going to start with white. So this arm is going to bend, so you'll learn how to make a bendy arm. Sticking with our 5mm hook still, we're going to make a magic ring. You're going to put 6 single crochets inside this magic ring. You're going to put 2 single crochets in each stitch around. This first stitch is always so hard to get into. So I'm just going to count to 12 as opposed to using my stitch marker, because I'm pretty confident I just did 6 stitches. So that's my 12. Next round is going to be 1 single crochet and an increase, which brings you to 18 stitches. So I managed to lose my stitch marker. I'm not sure how I lost my stitch marker. So the first stitch gets your marker. That's my 1 single crochet, and the next stitch gets the increase. Same as what we've been doing the whole time. 1 single crochet, 2 single crochet. For the next 2 rounds, you're just going to put 1 single crochet in each of these 18 stitches. So you can use your stitch marker, or you can just count to 36. So your next round is going to be 1 single crochet and a decrease. We're going to start decreasing because I really don't need the hand that big. It's just going to be a round ball for a hand. So that's my 1 single crochet, so I'll go straight into my decrease. And repeat. So this brings you back down to 12 stitches. So your next round is going to be 6 decreases. That's number 1. Just decreases. So we're going to switch to black at this point, but maybe just put a little bit of stuffing in there. Just a wee tiny bit, you don't need a whole lot. That's fine for now. We don't want to get this in the way of anything. So we are going to switch to black. You can just go into your next stitch and you can fasten right off with the white. It's just a lot cleaner to do it this way. We're just going to shove that down there with the stuffing. Like that. Make a slip knot. Need to have a super long tail or anything, just reattach in the same spot that you fastened off in. With your stitch, we can just jam the black tail in there, hopefully down the middle of the stuffing, because you don't want to see it through the white. So that's a cleaner way to do it. I mean, you can do it whatever way that you're comfortable doing it. This next round is going to be an aggressive increase, so it's going to be 2 single crochets in each stitch. So right now you should have 6 stitches. So we're just going right back up to 12, and we're just going to do it with 2 single crochets in each stitch. That's where I fastened off. That's why it seems so tight. I'm getting caught on the white. So this is going to be aggressive. And we kind of want that to accentuate the hand part. So this is where we're going to start bending with our arm. So I just want you to put a single crochet into your next stitch with your marker. So that's my 6 single crochets. Now you're going to do 6 half double crochets. We're going to do this for 4 rows. So that's 6 half double crochets. So 3 more rows, 6 singles, 6 half doubles. And that's how we're going to get the bend in our arm. So you can kind of see how it's going to turn a little bit. You can just have to stuff it that way too. So all we're going to do for the next 6 rows is 1 single crochet in each stitch. You should still only have 12 stitches. And then you can fasten off, you can stuff it, you can sew the top closed, and then sew it to the body. We'll do all that together. Anyway, 6 rows, 12 stitches. I'll see you on the other side. So I'm done my 6 rows. I am going to fasten off with a sewing tail. We've got this bend. I didn't need a bigger bend than that, or I would have made a bigger bend. So try not to overstuff it. You don't want to see that white stuffing through there. So it's going to be sewn on with the hand up like this. So you want your fold to be like that up against the body. So you're going to have to bring your, where you fastened off, you're going to have to bring it over a couple of stitches to get the fold proper. So I would just go in and pull through till you have it over to where you want it, because you're going to want to sew it together this way to sew it to the body, to have your bend like that, holding this staff. See what I mean? So that's what you want it to look like. You want this to be just like that. So this is the hole where your arm goes. All I did was with mine, so I knew where to sew my arm, was I just marked it with a pin, and then I just kind of took this off. So I know my arm needs to stick out at least there. So that's where I went ahead and just kind of whip stitch this to the body. I know it's hard to see because it's black. There's nothing I can do about it. I mean, I could turn up the brightness of my camera, but it still won't help you see me sewing black to black. So go ahead and sew your arm on any way you can, any way you want. And I'll meet you back here and we'll get the sixth done. So that's my arm. Just putting my robe back on. So it should just kind of stick out like that, and that's exactly what we want it to do, kind of bent up. So you can see the bend in it. So it's kind of bent up, getting ready to hold that staff. So that's what we're going to do next. Okay. So in order to make this, which is hard to see, again, because of the black, I made this part flat, and then I sewed it around a straw, just to keep it rigid. And you won't be able to see the straw through this. And then I made this in 2 pieces. I sewed the 2 pieces together and stuffed it, and then I sewed it to this. So that's the order in which we're gonna do things. So if you don't have a plastic straw, I'm sure a paper straw will work. So let's start with making what we're gonna wrap around the straw. So I'm using a 4mm or a G. So you're gonna make a slip knot and you're gonna chain 6. You have 5 working chains. You're gonna single crochet 5. You're gonna chain 1 and you're gonna turn. And you're gonna do this for 35 rows. then you can fasten off with a sewing tail that you can sew it around the straw. 35 rows. It does not take long because you only have 5 stitches. So I will see you on the other side. So that's my 35 rows. I'm going to fasten off with a sewing tail. So the sewing tail has to be long enough because you're going to take your straw and you're going to sew this all the way around your straw. So it's got to be long enough to do all of that. So first we got to hide this little guy. So I'm just going to whip stitch this all the way across. Not really a toy that a kid's going to play with, so I mean a whip stitch is probably going to work completely fine. Don't try to grab too much because you don't want to see the straw through this. But try to keep it close enough together that you're not going to get a gap. If we did any of my flowers with me, this is a lot easier than those because we built it flat. So as you can see by looking at your own and mine, you can't see this orange straw through it. So you can use any color straw you want. So I gotta trim off a little bit on mine, which is what I did on my last one too. It's why I only did 35 rows, just because I didn't need it to be as long as the straw. So I'm just finishing up my end. So this end is still open, which is fine because we're gonna use the this end to sew the blade to, so we can sew it up then. Just make sure you kind of stitch across and sew this up. I'm just gonna kind of stitch across the top, sew that up. And make a little knot, even though it's not going to go anywhere. But so after I pull tight, I'm just going to weave down a bit. It's hard to weave without hitting the straw, but you just kind of want to pull that down so it's nice and flat. And then I'm just going to weave a little bit. Few different directions. Try to go in as close as you can to your tail though, because you don't want to, you just want it to look like there's a stitch there. You don't want anything weird looking. So this end's still open, but we're gonna, like I said, we're gonna use that. So you can, if you want to trim it some more, you can trim some more. I think I'm fine. I'm just trying to fix my end. But as you can see, you can't see the straw through it at all. I have an orange straw, so you cannot see through it. So let's make the blade. Get rid of all my garbage. Clean up my work area a bit. So I use this gray to make a blade. This is, it feels like, I don't have the tag, but it feels like that equality stuff, great value stuff. What do you call it? Great value. You get it at, it's worsted. You get it at Michael's. It's orange and white label, I think. It's great value. Anyway, so, I'm still going to use my 4mm hook. we're going to build 2 pieces to this. So they're going to be flat, and then we're going to sew them together. So make your slip knot and chain 12. That's my 12. You have 11 working chains. You're going to single crochet 11. If you want the written pattern, you can find it in my Etsy store. Oh, and by the way, the Great Value yarn from Michaels, it doesn't come in a cake. I made it into a cake, so if you haven't seen my yarn winder video, you should go check that out too. Sorry, chain 3 and turn. Should read my own instructions. Chain 3 and turn. In this first stitch, you're going to put a triple crochet. So yarn over twice, go into the stitch, pull through 2, pull through 2, and pull through 2. So that's triple. You're going to put 2 half triples in the next space. So yarn over twice, go into your stitch, grab some yarn, pull through 2, and then pull through all 3. That's a half triple. You're going to put 2 of those in this space. The next stitch, you're going to put 2 double crochets, so yarn over once, grab some yarn, pull through 2, pull through 2, so put 2 of those in there. The next stitch is going to get the same thing, 2 doubles. The next stitch is going to get 2 half doubles, so yarn over once, go into the stitch, pull some through, and then pull through all 3. That's a half double. Put 2 of those in there. The next stitch is going to get the same thing, 2 half doubles. So you can already see it taking shape. The next stitch is going to get the same thing, 2 half doubles. Then you're going to do 4 single crochets. You're going to chain 2, and on the chain you're going to do 1 slip stitch, that's how we're going to get the point. Then you're going to come down here to the first row and you're going to slip stitch again. So that's how we get that curve and then the little point that jets up like that, and you can fasten off. So one of them you're going to fasten off with enough to sew the 2 ends together, and the other one you're going to fasten off to sew it to your staff. So either way you need a sewing tail. So go ahead and make number 2. I'll put it on the screen and I'll meet you back here. So I'm just finishing off my second one. So we're going to take care of this guy here. So I don't really want this big bump there, so I'm going to go into the next stitch. I'm going to pull down on that, turn it over, and then weave. That should take care of that bump. That's right there. So I'm not going to overly weave because I am just sewing the two pieces together. I also don't really need to cut it off. I just need it to get hidden in there. Do you know what I mean? So same with this guy. So I need to sew these together, and you're gonna have to decide which one's gonna be the back and which one's gonna be the front. I left a nubby on either one of them, but so one of them's gonna be that side, one of them's gonna be the back side. So we're gonna use one of our pieces to sew it together. We'll have to stuff it. So just try to forget, you gotta try to accentuate these bumps. You want these together. So you're gonna have to sew this in a way where you keep the shape that's supposed to be intended. So I just went to the very top corners. Yeah, you will see that like that, but I don't think all in all it's really going to be that noticeable. So I'm just going to give this a whip stitch. So a whip stitch is back loop to back loop. So that's all you need to pick up are these back loops to do a whip stitch, so that your stitches aren't, or your sewing stitches aren't going to be noticeable. You just need back loop to back loop. That's what a whip stitch is. And I know I say whip stitch a lot and then I go through all the pieces of yarn, but because this is going to be visible, I'm actually just doing a whip stitch, which is back loop to back loop. So it's not 4 pieces of yarn, it's only 2. So when I whip stitch, mine are angled because that's how I like the look. You can choose to do yours any way you want. Most of the stuffing you need in this part, not so much the tip. So once you get it all sewn up and you're happy with how it looks and where your stuffing is, just trying to move my stuffing to the, I want my stuffing more in this end than I do this end. Doesn't really matter about this end. So I'm just going to weave in and out with what I've got left. So just to make sure it doesn't try to bust open, I'm going to make a knot. You know, like I normally do. Make a little knot, cut a little off, jam it down. And there is your blade. So, this guy doesn't need to be right at the tip because we're not really dealing with the tip. So we were just going to scooch this guy down. So it's almost the same concept as weaving. We just need to move him. So if you got some spaces you didn't quite get closed or whatever, this is the opportunity. You can use this to do that with. I'm just going to pop out at the end. So you need to just figure out. So I didn't close my thing shut, so I'm going to take this. I'm going to go right across my end. And then I'm just going to go in and out using that end. So this is why I also trimmed my straw back, So I'm just going to go in and out using that end that doesn't have the straw in it. So you just need to make sure you're keeping it how it should be. I think I gotta turn mine down a little bit. So just make sure it's angled properly and continue to sew back and forth until you're satisfied. You were gonna see a little bit of the silver or gray or whatever color you want to call this. You're gonna see a little bit of it because, I mean, because it's gray on black, but nobody's really gonna be looking at it. So once you're satisfied with how it's sewn on, you can just use this to weave. Make sure you're going in as close to this as you can, so it just, when you pull, it just looks like it's a stitch. And that is how you're going to do your scythe or sickle, or I don't know what you want to call this thing. I think it's called a scythe. There you go. So, sewing it on, let me get rid of my stuff. So I sewed this on just, using the back of it. So it's all up to you, but I did use white because I came right through the hand and went back in and I grabbed some more. So tie a knot or a double knot at one end, because that's what you're going to poke down into your hand so that nobody can really rip the scythe from your Grim Reaper. This is just a display model, so I don't really think anyone's going to try to rip the scythe, but figure out how you want it. How you want the blade out, the blade in, the blade straight. And then you're just going to go into the hand, and all you're going to do is pick up a piece of yarn. Very hard to see, I know. Anyway, pull that through. You've got a piece of yarn. So I'm just going to swing back around and go back down through the hand. There's that piece of yarn that's holding on once you pull it. Now you're going to have to do that a few times to keep this sturdy. So go in as close as you can to your end. Grab another piece of yarn. Just try to stay around the same area. Try not to pull tight when you pull that way. When you go back in, you can pull tight this way and then pull tight. So that's pulling that firmly up against the hand. But if you pull tight when you go in through this way, you're going to end up with a divot in your hand, which I did a little bit anyway. So I might have to just pop that out with a pair of scissors. Because you still want this to be round. You don't want any divots. So I just did that a couple of times to sew it on. So if that's helpful, you can go ahead and sew the rest of it on. Make sure it's pretty sturdy. And I'll see you on the other side. So I think mine's sewed on pretty good. I'm just going to come down and I'm going to weave in back and forth. You can just cut that off. And then this dude, you can cut, leave a little bit of a tail on this guy. This is the knot that we made. You're just going to jam that down into the hand, into the stuffing. So I'm just going to pull out a bit because I got a divot from where I pulled too tight. Make sure your hand is still round. And there we have our guy with our scythe. Like 2 of them now. Bring this guy over here in this picture. Now they both have very different faces, but oh, his fell down. My arm kind of got unbended. I'm not sure how. Anyway, thanks for joining me, guys. I'll see you in the next video.